Hello humans and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. That's right, the video game show that is not hosted by an annoying e-beggar. There is no Patreon, no super chats. That's right, we just talk about the games we love and how fun it is to hoard them. Collect them. Now, with that said, let's get ready for the show. On today's episode, this show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello humans, let's talk about SEGA Saturn games that still hold up. I pray you forgive my use of my AI voice and read out loud for this video. I'm going through a very rough patch with my voice at the moment, and I have to take it easy for a few days doctor's order. I did not want that to stop me from talking to you about my favorite SEGA Saturn games. As you know, the SEGA Saturn is my favorite game console, and by that I don't mean the console that has all my favorite games. I mean the console itself is an engineering marvel of its time. A machine so well made it took decades to crack its security. I should say it's my favorite piece of retro hardware ever designed. I also wanted to talk about some great games that stayed in Japan, but you can still play now. I hope you enjoy, and I will be back recording live once the voice permits.
15 Best SEGA Saturn Games of All Time. Our favorite plan. Best SEGA Saturn games that still hold up today. 15. SEGA Rally Championship. Image via SEGA. SEGA Rally Championship is an arcade import-to-console game that features racing on different tracks with non-realistic handling and physics. Although it doesn't strive for realism, the game is a ton of fun, which is what retro games are all about. Overall, SEGA Rally Championship is one of the pioneers in the arcade racing industry, cemented itself as an OG in the myriad of racing games. 14. X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Image via Capcom. X-Men vs. Street Fighter is a fantastic and action-packed 2D fighting game that pits the characters from both franchises. The wide array of iconic crossover characters and their signature moveset make this a truly exhilarating experience. The game hits a special place in our hearts, and the nostalgic graphical approach of the game makes it truly one of the best SEGA Saturn games of all time. 13. Virtua Fighter 2. Image via SEGA. The Virtua Fighter series is the first of its kind, as it pioneered the genre of 3D fighting games. The sequel, Virtua Fighter 2, does a stellar job of elevating the first Virtua Fighter's mechanics to the next level. It pushes the boundaries of 3D fighting games, making it a classic game everyone remembers from childhood. 12. House of the Dead. Image via SEGA. House of the Dead is a horror light gun shooter that's entertaining and addictive to play. It's a fun game where you keep shooting zombies until you progress throughout the game. The mechanics and graphics at the time are fantastic and completely immersed players in the game. Who would ever forget fighting the magician at the end of the game? 11. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Image via Konami. Castlevania Symphony of the Night is arguably one of the best games in the series. It has a fantastic control scheme and epic boss fights, making the game highly replayable. Do you want more on why this game is legendary? The term Metroidvania was inspired by Castlevania and Metroid. As the iconic game in its genre, players must backtrack through previous areas upon learning new abilities to traverse different locations. Related, Best FPS Games on Core. 10. Virtua Cop 2. Image via SEGA. Virtua Cop 2 is one of the best arcade rail shooter games on the SEGA Saturn. What makes this game special is the multiple paths you can choose upon each playthrough, increasing the game's replayability. The game also has various weapons, which you can find as drops from the objects you destroy while eliminating enemies. 9. Sonic Jam. Image via Sonic Team. Sonic Jam is a collection of classic Sonic games. From Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2, and Sonic 3 to Sonic & Knuckles, the collection offers a lot of content for Sonic fans. Ironically, this museum of Sonic games highlights how the series fell into a series of setbacks. The game also performs well on the SEGA Saturn. Frame rates are great, and the SEGA Saturn's upgraded hardware helped render a higher quality gaming experience. Related, how to unlock Rouge the Bat in Sonic Speed Simulator. 8. Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. Image via SEGA. The lack of third-party games for the SEGA Saturn hurt the console's launch. That's why SEGA decided to port their famous arcade game Daytona USA to improve the console sale. Although this version of Daytona has far less content than the arcade version, it still gives you plenty of nostalgic fun. 6. Dragon Force. Image via SEGA. Longtime RPG fans consider Dragon Force a great game that demands hours of attention. It offers an excellent hybrid between strategy and role-playing games, enhancing the experience. While the story is solid, the large-scale battles make the game an enjoyable and unique experience. It immerses the players in what it feels like to command and strategize during a war. 5. The King of Fighters 97. Image via SNK. The King of Fighters for the Sega Saturn is a game that fans welcomed with open arms. With that in mind, KOF 97 has more gameplay and team customization, quickly making it one of the best iterations of the game upon its release. The excellent soundtrack and character artwork defined KOF 97's identity in the fighting game industry. The energetic stage design also immensely helped the game in terms of immersion. 4. Guardian Heroes. Image via SEGA. Although everyone completely disregarded Guardian Heroes upon its release, it was only a matter of time before it found its footing as an excellent beat-em-up game. The interesting twist of being a fantasy beat-em-up made it appealing to fans since it was an unorthodox approach to the genre. Many characters have a wide range of moveset, sometimes requiring the player to do a half-circle movement with the directional buttons. It borrowed distinct aspects from the RPG genre, including narrative choices, leveling up, and even upgrading your character's skills. Guardian Heroes is truly a one-of-a-kind game that blends multiple genres perfectly. Related, Best JRPGs on Nintendo Switch. 3. Panzer Dragoon Saga. Image via SEGA. How awesome would riding a dragon and shooting your enemies out of the air be? It has a simple gameplay design, but Panzer Dragoon Saga made the best out of it. The game lets you look around and target enemies in 4 directions, making it a memorable rail shooter experience. Panzer Dragoon Saga is an exciting game to play, and you should give it a try. That's especially true if you're a Game of Thrones fan. Dracarys. 3. Nights into Dreams. Image via SEGA. Old consoles were best known for platforms, and one of the best was Nights into Dreams on Sega Saturn. The game mechanic may look familiar because the authors are Sonic Team. So everything you know about Sonic, you can use in the Nightopia dream world where the game takes place. Just like most platform games of the time, Nights into Dreams is also 3D, which gives the game a modern feel, although it's pretty old. 2. Metal Slug. Image via SNK. Metal Slug is another iconic game in the run-and-gun 2D side-scrolling genre. You go into the game guns blazing and eliminate enemies while trying not to get hit by any of them. The game also has random rewards for weapons that you can use to aid you in battle. The character sprites look great and are a 1:1 copy of the Neo Geo counterpart. Metal Slug also offers an excellent sound design with quality voice lines and sound effects. Metal Slug is a nostalgic game you should try on the Sega Saturn emulator. 1. Saturn Bomberman. Image via SEGA. Lastly, who can ever forget about Saturn Bomberman? Saturn Bomberman has players fill the shoes of a character who can plant bombs and explode seconds after dropping them. It is a simple idea that turned into an iconic series. While there's nothing too special about the story mode, having 10-player multiplayer in battle mode creates a night of mayhem for you and your friends. The Sega Saturn was Sega's follow-up the highly successful Sega Genesis. Though it was poorly announced in North America with little fanfare, it was actually a fantastic system. Though it did very poorly in the West, some even argue it's a large reason Sega left console manufacturing to become a third-party developer for once rival platforms. It was incredibly popular and successful in its native country, Japan. The Sega Saturn was a 2D machine, capable of creating arcade-perfect games at home. However, the industry was shifting towards 3D, especially in the West, so it had a hard time competing with the built-for-3D Nintendo 64 and the Sony PlayStation. Related, Sega announces new handheld Game Gear Micro. With the West only seeing 258 games out of a total of 1,265 released in Japan, you can be sure that there were many great games we never got to experience. To help remedy this, we have collected 10 of the best Sega Saturn games that never left Japan. 10 Radiant Silvergun. Radiant Silvergun comes from the amazing minds at Treasure, creators of such classics like Gunstar Heroes and Alien Soldier. Unlike most shoot-em-ups where you pick up different power-ups such as the spread shot, homing shot, or straight shot, in Radiant Silvergun you are given all of the power-ups from the start and must figure out when to use each. Treasure followed up Radiant Silvergun with the beloved spiritual successor Ikaruga. The game was later ported to the Xbox Marketplace with updated graphics where it remains today, so this is one you can play right now. 9 Elevator Action returns. Elevator Action was a classic Taito arcade game that's seen many ports across multiple systems. Elevator Action Returns takes the format of the original game but updates it for 1994 to make it a much more thrilling experience. The premise of the game is simple: go through a building taking out all in your way, then enter all of the doors until you find the exit. This updated version of the game adds different weapons, very impressive graphics, and featuring a much more gritty and realistic setting than the original. 8 Dungeons and Dragons Collection. Capcom was the king of the arcade beat-em-up back in the 90s with great classics like Final Fight, The King of Dragons, and Knights of the Round. Dungeons and Dragons Collection took some of Capcom's best beat-em-ups set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe and put them into one awesome package. Related, the 10 best modern beat-em-ups, ranked. The collection brings together 2 games only seen in arcades prior to this, Dungeons and Dragons, Tower of Doom and Dungeons and Dragons, Shadow over Mystara. They take the classic beat-em-up formula and add some RPG elements similar to the source material. 7 Princess Crown. Developed by Atlas, the team behind Princess Crown later came together to form Vanillaware, creators of Odin's Sphere, Dragon's Crown, and Muramasa, the Demon Blade. Similar to their later work, Princess Crown has breathtaking, highly detailed hand-drawn visuals. Related, new Dragon's Crown figure boobily breasts onto store shelves soon. Princess Crown plays very similar to Odin's Sphere. You traverse a side-scrolling world with deep beat-em-up gameplay, make potions with the crafting system, and all while experiencing an epic tale. With just about all of Vanillaware's games seeing ports in recent years, we really hope Princess Crown gets an English translation. 6. Policenauts. From acclaimed game designer Hideo Kojima, Policenauts is a spiritual successor to the beloved Snatcher, which only seen a North American release on the Sega CD. Similar to Snatcher before it, Policenauts is a point-and-click visual novel in which you are Jonathan Ingram, a policenaut in the distant year of 2013. Related, Hideo Kojima and Norman Reedus might be working on another project. An English translation was announced for the Sega Saturn, set to be released in 1996, even appearing in magazines. However, the English version was never released, and with the splitting of Kojima and Konami, it may never get a chance to shine. 5. Kyo Flying Squadron 2. A sequel to the incredibly rare Sega CD Kyo Flying Squadron 2 stars Rumi Nana Hikaris as she fights enemies based off of Japanese mythology. Unlike the first game, which was a shoot-em-up, Kyo Flying Squadron is a platformer but does occasionally have some shoot-em-up sections. Kyo Flying Squadron 2 is incredibly colorful and has some great sprite work that is impressive even by Saturn standards. Both Kyo Flying Squadron games could use modern ports, so you don't have to pay the equivalent of a used car to play them. 4. Cyberbots, Full Metal Madness. From the kings of 90s arcade fighters come Cyberbots, Full Metal Madness, a fast-paced one-on-one tournament fighter with a roster comprised entirely of robots controlled by expressive anime characters. Jin Soetama, who you may know from the Marvel vs. Capcom series, plays the role of the main protagonist in the game. Related, Street Fighter V, every main character's age, height, birthday and birthplace. You have all of the great Street Fighter-like combat you have come to expect from a Capcom fighter, but when you defeat an enemy, you take part of their robot and attach it to your own, adding both depth and replayability. 3. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. While there was a port of Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the Sony PlayStation at the time and countless ports now, the Japanese exclusive Sega Saturn port adds a few more areas not found in any other port, as well as the ability to play as Maria. This classic game, often referred to as one of the best games of all time, was the series' departure from the linear style into a more open style made popular by Nintendo's Metroid series. This and Super Metroid created the Metroidvania genre that has become incredibly popular in recent years. 2. Tri-Rush Depii. Tri-Rush Depii is an extremely colorful action platformer with a great soundtrack. Depii is a cute little taxi with a fun dash move he uses to attack enemies and break obstacles. You must keep collecting gas to keep Depii from going on empty and failing the level. Each boss has a weak point that you must find and exploit, but doing so isn't always easy. Tri-Rush Depii is an excellent showcase of what the Saturn was capable of. The highly detailed and colorful sprites are fantastic, and the expressions made by Depii give the game personality. 1. Silhouette Mirage. Made by the same developers who made Radiant Silvergun, Silhouette Mirage is a great side-scrolling run-and-gun with some added beat-em-up and RPG elements thrown in. The game melds 2D sprites on 3D backgrounds to create an interesting and unique look. The game leans heavily on the gimmick of color. The color you are corresponds with which enemy you can attack, similar to another treasure game Ikaruga. Though this can be hard to get the hang of, over time you get used to it and are rewarded with a great game. Next, Sega is teasing an announcement for its 60th anniversary.
New videos every Monday and Sunday. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Gen X Gamer. Remember to like and subscribe, click that notification bell, and remember, never ever be afraid to be happy. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.